Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mark with Limo Marketer. I'm joined here by Jorge Sanchez with Hermes Worldwide. Thanks for joining me, Jorge.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Yeah, I've been trying to do this for years. So I actually met Jorge. I still remember back in 2019, we actually met in person in Nashville. And
Yep.
so worked together a little bit since. And, you know, he's one of the larger operators I know. And he's just had a lot of success in the industry, and probably one of the larger operators I've interviewed on here that started his business and grew it from, I'm pretty sure square one, but we'll get into
Correct.
that. So before Hermes, you were in the tech industry, right? Can you kind of walk me through what you were doing? You were an engineer, correct, by trade, or
Yeah, software engineer. So
software?
I pretty much, I got into computers back when you didn't have just the 5.5-inch floppy disk, but sometimes there's still remnants of those big, I think they're 8.5 by or 8x8 or 8x10-inch floppy disks. They were big, and you're still printing on the lined white and green paper that was super wide. Like that's when I got into computers, and that was in high school. So I was really fascinated by it. I've always enjoyed numbers and math and science, and so computers was a good mesh of all that. So got my degree, my undergrad degree in computer science. Pretty much everything I've done throughout my life was related to computer software. A little bit of development, not a lot of it, but I like bridging and creating solutions and bridging disparate systems. So I found my niche as a solution architect. So I love when there's a business problem. We got all these disparate software solutions. How can we bring them all together to create a solution that either makes the employee's job easier and or makes it easier for the customer to transact with the company. And so that's what I pretty much did for I don't know 20 plus years before I started the transportation business.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it wasn't until what, late 30s, early 40s that you got into transportation business, or?
Yeah, late 30s. I was, if I can do the math properly, let's see, 38, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. And so
Yeah.
you were just working at other businesses before then, and these were, I checked out your LinkedIn. Some Honeywell, I know, is that security alarm, like business, or?
Honeywell's in everything. So they do
Oh, okay.
security. They do your keypads for your furnaces. And by the way, it's actually 34 years. I was 34 when I started, but
Oh,
the
okay.
transportation
Okay.
business. But Honeywell, they build engines that go on planes because I worked for Honeywell Aerospace. So
Oh,
that was the
okay.
last job I
That's
did.
different.
Yeah. So that was the last job I did before I started transportation business. Prior to that, I was working for Avaya, which did a lot of communications platforms. Prior to that, it was Lucid. I've worked for IBM. I worked for JD Edwards, which was eventually bought by PeopleSoft, which was bought by Oracle. Um,
Oh,
even when I
wow.
was even when I was working for First Bank locally here in town, I worked in their IT support division. So I got a 20 plus year history of IT work for many different companies, both large and small. Just never a startup. So when I started transportation, first experience I've had with a startup, first business I ever owned or tried to start, and here we are 18 years later.
Did you always? So I've noticed that myself, a lot of friends who own businesses, they kind of always weren't, I shouldn't say they weren't great employees, but they were always they always kind of knew, man, I'd always like to have my own thing one day. Was it always like that for you? And how, well, that'll be my next question. I'm just curious how you went into, I'm sure that's an interesting story, but did you always kind of have that plan one day to do your own thing, get into and start a business?
Yes and no, but it was really IT related. I talked to different friends. I wasn't sure where to get into it, and it was really the easy avenue was consulting. And so
Yes.
you
Yeah.
start your own IT consulting business, and so but I never really got that off the ground, and so I never really pursued that. And fate would have it. Maybe I wasn't ready, but God had different plans for me. So I did, yes and no. Um, I kind of bought in early on, because again, a little bit older. So, I've been working for a while, and, I was at a time when for us culturally in society was, hey, you go to college, you get a degree, you work for somebody else. Ultimately, what they don't tell you, making a lot of money for someone else, even if you're well compensated, you're making a lot of
Sure.
money for somebody else. And so I bought into that. And then you contribute and diversify by buying different stocks in your 401k, buying mutual funds, and just keep contributing to that, even though you have zero say so in how any of that money is invested, other than where you want to place it. And then work for 30 plus years, and then you retire and go play a bunch of golf when you get really old. So I hope you like golf, because otherwise it'd be boring in retirement, or fish or do something. And so I bought into that early on. But then as I got further into my career, I realized at that time I wasn't even playing golf. So it's like, well, I'm not going to do that. I love to fish, but not every day. And to me, I was getting passed over upper level management opportunities that I felt I proved I could do and that I was deserving of. And I kept having my employers basically tell me, no, you're not the right person. And so I said, you know what? After I went back to school, because 9/11 hit. And so everyone around me at the time, I was working for a Vail, everyone in my department was either being terminated or they're quitting and leaving. And I saw the writing on the wall. I'm like, well, I'm the new guy at the time, so I'm going to get terminated. So I took advantage of the tuition reimbursement program and said, well, let me suck everything I can out of my employer until I get terminated. And so I got the tuition reimbursement program, went and pursued and got my master's in business. And that's where I learned about sales and marketing and finance and international business and how borders are shrinking with technology and, transportation like airplanes and be able to move around very easily. And so that really kind of set that speed for eventually leading to the transportation business I'm in now. But I did that. And once I finished that program, luckily I still stayed employed, even though I was one of two people that didn't get fired, after 9/11 hit. I was able to stay long enough to finish my degree in business. And so at that point, I started traveling a lot as business came back. Like I was 75% of the year I was on the road. And so I was a consumer. I was in the back seat. And, I was being driven by taxis, which they were very unreliable. This was before Uber. So
Yeah.
very
Oh man.
unreliable. Yeah, whether
Yeah.
they would show up, what time they would show up. You didn't have the ability to really call them on cell phones like you do now. And so it
Yeah.
was a mess. And I was always trying to get to the airport. Well, eventually I got a cab driver who said, oh, you can schedule with me directly. Here's my business card. I was like, oh, I can do that. I don't have to go through the main number. He's like, yeah, you can just call me directly. He's like, because what we do is we just have to pay a weekly fee, but we're essentially our own business.
Yeah. 1099, right?
Yeah. So I was like, all right, cool. So I started calling him directly, and he was taking me to the airport every week. And then for overflow, that's where farming out came in. He's like, hey, I'm busy. I got multiple clients. He's like, I'm going to send a friend of mine who I know who used to be a cab driver, but he had started his own town car business. I'm going to send him, and you just pay him directly. And so I learned that concept of farming out. And then I learned later, like he would just cut him 20% for the business and give him
Yeah.
20% for that referral. Well,
Sure.
the cab driver eventually lost. He had too many tickets. Eventually lost his license. So now I was left with just the town car driver. So I was calling him every week, and then he was telling me just through conversations like, "Hey, I'm my business is growing. I'm looking for a part-time driver to help me out." I'm like, "Well, one, and this was around Christmas time or in December, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and our business kind of shut down because for the corporate world, a lot of people, their budgets were spent. They were all
Yep.
taking vacation before they could lose it. So we kind of shut down, so to speak.
Yep.
And so I was like, hey, I've been in customer service all my life, ever since I was bussing tables at 12 years old. And so I know how to handle people. I know how to drive safely. I can wear a suit and dress sharply. I'm like, and I can earn some extra scratch for the holidays for Christmas. So I was
Yeah.
like, let me drive for you part-time. And so he did that. And that was kind of my intro to it. And it was never intended to be long-term, never thought about starting my own transportation company. It was more of, hey, I just want to earn some extra scratch for the holidays and, maybe buy my kids a little bit nicer toy or something. And that was really the rationale behind it. So then one thing led to another where he was like, hey, I got approached about, someone was looking at buy my business. At the time, it was just one car. And I was like,
Okay.
hey, you know what? Let me put my MBA skills to the test. I'm like, if you're looking to sell, would you be open to, let me take a run at it? He's like, sure, if you want. So he gave me all the data and I started looking at it, and he wanted way too much. So I didn't know anything about buying a business, running a business, evaluating a business. But from the data I had, I knew he was wanting way too much. I mean, he did like 50,000 a year, 55,000 a year total in business, gross revenue, not profit.
Oh, gross.
Gross.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like, sorry,
And
man.
yeah, and he wanted like 75,000 for his business. I'm like, hey man, I'm new at all this, but I know it's way too much. I said, if you can get that, more power to you, but I'm not the guy. And in the
Yeah.
end, he didn't end up selling like he thought he would. But somehow that transaction led to a rumor in my local market in Denver that I was looking to buy a limo business, which I wasn't. It just happened to be in front of me, and it was more practice. So
Sure.
then,
No, for sure.
yeah, so then I got another person in the industry, because again, there's all kinds of farm outs going on between all these individual IOs, right?
Totally.
So someone else in the industry said, hey, I heard you were looking to buy business. Again, I already addressed that. I wasn't. But it's like, there's an older couple who are retired. Business is starting to decline. They want to know if you're interested in buying them. And again, they just have one car. So I went and spoke to them, put my MBA skills to the test, and I thought I was pretty hot stuff, to be honest with you, Mark, because like, okay, I've done this before, got a little experience, and they wanted 120,000 a year. And I said, you know what? You're asking too much. I laid out all the reasons why they're asking too much. And I said, I'll pay you 90. And they took it. And I thought I was pretty hot stuff.
Wait. They wanted how you said 120,000. Did you say a year? What?
I'm sorry, 120,000 total.
Oh, okay. All right. Got
Thanks
it.
for the
Got it.
clarification. So they wanted 120,000 total, and I said, no, you want too much. I'll pay you 90. So I thought I was hot stuff. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna, discount 25%. And I felt it was justified.
Do you remember the numbers, like the any of the stuff, like the EBITDA or anything like that?
No, so I didn't know enough to really calculate EBITDA on an IO. So I just looked at gross revenue, because someone had told me sometimes when you buy small businesses, oftentimes it's 1 year gross revenue. And
yeah. That makes sense. I mean, it's hard to value a business of that size, right?
Yeah. So the only reason I was interested is because I was like, okay, one, I'm only going to give you 75% of what you're asking. Secondly, they had a bunch of key accounts I felt like I can grow. They worked with ING at the time, which was Voya. They had multiple law firms in Denver.
That's huge.
They had a bunch of weekly travelers, like a venture capitalist. They got some IT people that were high up. They weren't low level. And so they've been doing it for many years. So I was like, okay, well, let me figure, let's say 50% of them stick around. It makes sense, right? And then thankfully, they all stuck around until they all retired. But knowing what I know now, I feel way overpaid for the business, like by a factor of 2. But it led me to where I was here, because I was able to not only keep the clients we had, I was able to grow those accounts. And then because I was an IT consultant, I was a customer myself, as well as I knew a bunch of people that traveled. So in the end, it all worked out. But that's kind of what led me to where I was. It was just more by chance versus something I was seeking.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. They say these days there's so many opportunities with baby boomers retiring, and a lot of people probably don't realize that there are lots of smaller operations that they might not have kids to hand the business down to, or the kids don't want the business, right? And you don't always need the capital, right? I mean, I'm sure, I don't know how you finance that deal or what you did, but you can do small amount up front, and sometimes you can just do collector or financing by the person selling it to you, which essentially means you're paying them off, right, each year.
Yeah.
So that became Hermes. Was that business called Hermes, or that had another name and you rebranded, or yeah, when did Hermes quote unquote start?
So that company was Hermes Private Car,
Oh,
and
okay.
so I replaced the private car with Worldwide because at the time, as you know, first couple of years I was into it, everybody was Worldwide, right? And that was my focus day one. I'm like, hey, I'm not interested in just Denver. Like, there's global corporations everywhere. People travel all over the globe. I want to be that
Totally.
one-stop shop to them, right? So I rebranded to Hermes Worldwide. When we changed our business structure after, I don't know, 18 to 24 months or something. But in the end, I learned the worldwide part really didn't matter. Maybe it did early on when, you know, maybe still ran ads in newspapers, still ran ads in phone books, which really don't exist anymore. Maybe then it kind of made sense, but now the name isn't as important as the brand recognition and what does that mean?
Exactly.
You
Because
know?
let's be honest, there's a lot of quote unquote worldwides, right? Which
Mhm.
probably not very many are. But so in building that brand, so that was when you bought it. What year? That was around what you said,
October
18 years?
2007. October 2007.
Wow. And it's changed a lot since then. So I'm assuming, well, initially started out where they just had a sedan or SUV, and then you slowly started building up SUV fleet. Like, when was it that where you made your foray into start getting larger vehicles? Like, and what were those vehicles? Did you ever go into stretch limos or party buses or anything like that, or did you always generally stick with corporate?
So we started out 100% focused on corporate, or if you wanted to go out to dinner, you know, something like that. But that was really all our focus. But then that led to the corporation saying, "Hey, we have whatever a board of directors coming in, or we're having a meeting of 20 people. Can you help us out?" Right? And it was very easy when it's like, "Oh, we got individual flights coming in. Everyone needs their own car." That was very easy. But when they started saying, "Hey, we need 10 people to go to the airport, to dinner, to an offsite meeting," that's when we eventually got into van. But it was the old Econoline short top. I think they were E350s or something.
Okay. Yep.
Very uncomfortable. So we got into that. Then once we started doing that, our clients started wanting us to handle even bigger meetings. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to partner, right? So I found local companies that had bigger equipment, not really party buses, but more of the traditional executive style forward facing seating, whether it was mini coaches or various size buses. And so we
Yeah.
started doing that. But and then we did a little bit too with stretch limos. We were working with the traditional limo company that had, you know, the Escalade stretch or a party bus or something for things like weddings. What we have found early on was that the companies weren't meeting our service standards that I had set out and what they were used to. Um, and that started to become problematic. And really what led us to get into the bigger equipment is, even though we can explain to our clients, like, hey, I'm sorry that they showed up later, the driver wasn't answering the phone, or the bus was dirty. You know, we try to provide all these instructions early on about what the expectations are, but they just overall weren't listening or not listening enough. Our clients said, listen, we get it. But because this was our experience, either we want a refund or we want a discount. And then I'd have to essentially have a tough conversation with our partner at the time, because of course they didn't want to give up anything and gave up every
Of
excuse
course.
in the book as to why what happened, even though it was clearly their failure. Our clients, I said, listen, why don't you just get into the bus business yourself? Like, we have actually more work to give you. So I got my wheels turning, and I want to say, gosh, it was probably about 7 to 8 years, when let's see, we got our first motor coach in 2017, so it was 10 years. We got in the minibus business probably about 2 or 3 years before that. So it was probably around 2013, 2014 when we got our first minibus, and then just got our second and got into the executive style sprinters, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think we're the first to bring that style executive style sprinter to our market. Back, gosh, I don't even know. It was maybe 2010, 2011, somewhere around there.
Oh, wow.
When
Okay.
when they weren't as common as they
Yeah.
are today. And so when we started matching the service standards, with the elegance of the vehicle, with the reliability. And then we just graduated that into the mini buses, which is easy to do with the provider like Gretsch Motors, who has always produced a great product. And then you start getting into the bigger buses like Gretsch. We started getting into the GM40s and some of their 35 to 40 footers. And then that eventually led to us getting into motor coaches, where MCI, the Timsas, the Van Hoels of the world started building limo specs. They call it, leatherette seating, lighting, more of a full wood flooring, just to more mimic a more traditional style limo that's really nice, but executive, all forward facing, different amenities. And so we just eventually graduated that. And it really came from our clients saying, listen, we love working with you guys, but your partners you're using are failing. We can't have that. Please get into the bus business. And so to some extent, I don't want to say we're forced into it, but that led me to, if we want it done the way we want it done, we just got to do it ourselves. And that also came from some of our employees, because they were getting very frustrated. Those in the back office, whether it was a dispatch manager or one of the other people from my management team, they're like, can we just get in it? Like, if we're going to, I'm tired of having these conversations with the client and our partners.
Yeah.
So let's just get into it ourselves. So I said, all right, let's go. We rolled the dice, and now we got a pretty sizable fleet and well known for a lot of different industries, both in our local market and outside.
How much of the work you do with the buses is contract type work versus more one-off type stuff? It's mostly with those large buses. I'm guessing you're not buying those until you're pretty confident you at least have some sort of contract work that you can fill in with, or what percentage of your bus work is contract versus non? I'm assuming it's mainly contract work, or
so there's different styles of contract work, right? You can get a continuous shuttle, right, where it's like here we have casinos, and you can get on a fixed route, fixed schedule, get a contract, and every day you need X number of buses are going to be running for X amount of time, and so you can do the math and figure that out.
Yes.
We haven't won that business because we haven't been able to meet their lower price point in terms of the customer.
I'm sure they yeah, they get some pretty good rates, I'm sure, because to have that much guaranteed business, I'm assuming everyone would want that, right?
Correct. And so that's been a challenge for us to try to maintain the profit that we're trying to maintain versus the low dollar guaranteed work, which I understand you do, for that guaranteed work, consistent thing, you do got to lower your prices quite often. It's just, I haven't been able to go as low as they wanted me to go. But part of the reason why is because we're so successful elsewhere. We have many other contracts, whether it's with hotel accounts, whether it's DMCs, whether it's corporations. We have a lot of those contracts, which even if it's not on a fixed shuttle schedule, it's contracted work where they're able to demonstrate how much business they're going to give us. And they've been able to actually do that, because too often corporations are like, yeah, we do $100,000 a year, so we want your pricing based on that $100,000 a year. And when I was first in the industry, I was like, oh, okay, great. Like, yeah, I'd love to work with you. Give them whatever discount. And like, okay, yeah, we'll sign. And come to find out they do $25,000 a year in business. I'm like, well, what happened?
Yeah.
So that's why you got to be very careful about what they promise. You'd want to
pie in the sky, right?
Yeah, you'd want to change it differently to say, okay, let's have some
like tiered sort of. Yes.
So like no discount early on, or maybe a small one, and then once you reach this other threshold, we'll give you a bigger discount. Reach another threshold, then we'll give you more. Or I prefer more of on a commission basis, right? So it's like, hey, I agree to, let's just call it 5%. I'll give you 5% back for however much business you want to send, right? But then they sometimes will ask for tiers there too and say, okay, well, 5% to open, but then what if we get to this tier? Can we get a little bit more? Sure, we'll go up to 7, and then another tier. Okay, we'll go up to 10. So it makes them earn those bigger discounts or commissions instead of just giving it to them right up at the front.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to do it. The Hermes brand, it's pretty big, I know, in your market in all of Colorado. I'm curious, how did you what do you handle in the business, man? I know you're the CEO, but do you have like a director of operations? Like kind of what's the structure like now? Because I know it's a pretty sizable business at this point. I know you've made, several acquisitions. How is your business structured at this point in terms of like leadership team and so forth?
Yeah, so I've never been a big believer in a lot of hierarchy, even when I was in the corporate world. Like if I have a question, like I'm not saying, I'm the low man on the totem pole. I should just be able to go into the CEO's office of a Fortune 100, or Fortune 50 company and, get their ear. Because I understand their time's limited because I'm nowhere near that size and my time's limited now. So I can only imagine when you have that many more people and that many more shareholders and responsibilities and customers. But being a small business, to me, speed matters.
No,
And
totally.
in sports, they say speed kills, right? So when I take that same analogy, because I've always played sports my whole life, just pretty much every single sport. I still love sports now. And I take that same philosophy with me now in business of speed kills. But what I mean by that is speed kills your competition, right? So if you can get to market quicker, if you can respond quicker, like I cannot tell you how much business we've earned because we were the first to respond. That's it. Didn't even matter about the price.
Yeah.
And especially someone that's used to using transportation, like, oh, wow, we've never gotten a response from anyone before. And we have companies we've been working with for years. Like sometimes it takes 2-3 days to get back to us. And you guys are responding within minutes or maybe an hour. And like if we've taken 2 or 3 hours to respond, we're apologizing. Hey, I'm sorry, it took me a little bit longer, but here's your answer. You're like, don't worry about it. Like you guys respond so quick. So we've done very good. And so that's kind of the culture I've created. Like, hey, we have to answer quickly, right? Because sometimes you'll get the business just because you're the first to respond because they want to make a decision. Secondly, that creates trust, that creates reliability, and that tells them, hey, we know someone that's going to be responsive. And so
yes,
when they need all that, they come to us. And so we've just built our team with that in mind. Now, to answer your question pointedly, I've always believed in a flat architecture. Like for us to be quick, my team has to be able to have immediate access to me, right?
Yeah.
And so I do have managers that help make all the decision. I have leadership team where we have an HR manager, I have a director of client success, I have a director of operations, I got a chauffeur manager, and I got a fleet manager. That's it. 5.
Do you jump levels? So Elon, I don't know if you've ever followed his style. That's exactly, and these are massive companies. He goes straight to talk to the engineers, right?
Oh yeah,
literally down like 5, but that's fascinating. And yeah, I agree because you can move quicker, right? And and you have your finger on the pulse, right? Of like what's actually going on.
And I mean, I'll go straight to our mechanic. I'll go straight to a detailer. Like it's not because I don't trust my leadership team.
Sure.
But I'm just an impatient person by nature. I think I was just born that way. So if, instead of waiting 30 minutes for an answer, if I go to their manager, if I'm nearby or something, sometimes I'll just go straight to the source. Like, hey, what happened here? What are we doing? What transpired? Why did this vehicle break down? Why, what happened with this accident? Whatever it might be. Sometimes I'll just go straight to the source. Like I have no problem. But at the same time, they have to know that they can come to me too. And to the point, like even I believe that so much. In my office, I don't have an office. I literally share, my office is our storage closet. And I have a standing desk.
I like that.
Yeah, so I have a standing desk. I share it with all of our storage and our marketing material, things like that. And my door's pretty much always open when I'm in the office. And so I do that because to keep a pulse on the business, I want to be able to move around. I want people to know they can come to me. And so it's always been very important to me is the speed, flat hierarchy. We don't have a bunch of layers. Like that's it. There's not middle managers. Sometimes my team, if they've come from corporate America, sometimes they suggest, oh, maybe we should have another supervisor here, things like that. I'm like, no, we don't need that. We need
some more meetings.
Flat. Yeah, yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, no, it's funny when you're in small business. Yeah, I couldn't imagine working in one of those really big, bloated, where you're in meetings all day, right? Bureaucracy, death by bureaucracy.
Couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, and so I want to respect your time here. what do you see for the future of Hermes? Because you've made what in the last few years, how many acquisitions? I don't know if you want to mention what those have been, but I know some resort towns, right? Aspen.
So over the years, I may be off by one or two, but I think we've made 6 or 7 purchases. All of them but one were all really small, but to the point where they were maybe 1 or 2 car operations, and that was it. And they had different reasons why they were needing to get out. And so I've never been very active in looking for acquisitions. There were more came to us. Because I don't know, there's some rumor in our industry, and I only know this because someone came to me one time and wanted us to buy his business. It was just 1 car operation. And so I was having a conversation with them, and he said, "Yeah, I heard you guys are backed by private money." I started laughing. I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I heard you, in order way for you to have grown the way you have, you have to be backed by VCs or something." I'm like, I said, "You're partially right. You are backed by private. We are backed by private money. That private money being mine and my wife's." So when I first started the business, I was doing it full time, but I didn't want to cheat my employer. So my wife, I do it super early in the morning. Then during normal business hours, I work my regular job, and then in the evenings and then on the weekends, I was 100% doing it. But I was putting in 75 to 80-hour work weeks every week for 3.5 years to be able to do both.
Oh, I believe it.
I wanted the business to be successful, but I didn't feel right about cheating my employer, so I had to be focused there. And then my wife helped as well during the business day, but we're small enough then she could do it. Once she got the kids off to school, then she worked on business, answering the phone, doing accounting, scheduling, even sometimes having to drive. So that's how. So we did that. I sold her van for an SUV. I sold my truck for a new town car. Got an SBA loan and credit card and whatever little cash we had. We were all in when we started. So when that guy told me, "Oh yeah, I heard you're backed by private money," I'm like, "That part you're right about. What you're wrong about is there's no VC,
I'm it,
no
baby.
investor." I'm it. So yeah. So to address that question, but in terms of the acquisitions, like I said, they've all come to us because they were wanting to get out, and I'm one of the few people that if it makes sense, I'll buy it. We did buy one of our largest competitors about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, which was Presidential. At the time, that had a 32-year history. And that was by far the biggest acquisition we've ever done. But everything else has been small. But you're right. In the Vail Valley, we acquired Vail Limo, again, small operator. And then Aspen, we acquired Aspen Limo Services, which again is a small operator.
But they had been in those markets for a while, right? They
Correct.
had websites that had been in those markets a while. And what a lot of people don't realize is there's a lot of value in just being a very niche provider in a small market, but you kind of own that market, right? Maybe not own, but you are people in that market know you, right? And there's a lot of value in that, especially Aspen. That's the ski town that if you had to pick one, that's probably it, right? Aspen is it. Would you say that's number one, and then Vail? Aspen's a super high end, right?
They are super high end. I don't know that I would pick them over the Vail Valley, just because.
Oh, really? Interesting.
The Vail Valley has a lot of high end homes as well. And I don't know in terms of population. I think it's a little bit bigger. But then
I see what you mean.
But then also their proximity to a Keystone or a Breckenridge is closer than Aspen. Aspen has multiple resorts.
Okay.
So where Aspen will have 2 ski resorts between them and Snowmass, and then the Vail Valley will have Beaver Creek, they'll have Vail, and then the proximity to Copper, Keystone, and Breckenridge is really close too. So someone's coming for a week or 2 weeks, they got a lot of different resorts they could go to. So I don't know if I pick one over the other, but what I do know is, for example, like you mentioned with the websites, with Aspen Limo Services, one of the things that made it attractive to us is they were number one organically on so many keywords related to the Aspen market. That takes a lot of time to build. Even with SEO, as you know, because I've worked. I have, and I still work with you on SEO for the websites. it takes many years to build that, like not
It
just one or
does.
two or even three. And in order to get that, there's a lot of value in those websites. So now when I look at a company, that's one of the first things I look at is I do
As
an
you should.
analysis on their website to say where do they rank organically, and is there that, and then that to me is more value. What a lot of sellers don't know is they think, oh, I got a lot of repeat clients and my business is worth a lot. But yet, if you go to their website, even if the website's pretty, you look at how they rank organically, they're really low, like not in the top 3, 5, or even the top 10. They're on
Yes.
page 4, right? And even though I get it because they put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into building their business, and they probably do have a lot of repeat clients and maybe very successful and provide a nice life for their family, when you're looking at it as a buyer, all that is nice, but your blood, sweat, and tears doesn't matter. What matters is the results. And where are you
Exactly.
ranking at? What's the profit margin? That's all that matters, because in my experience, no matter how hard we've worked, we always lose some clients simply because some clients don't like change. Or maybe they weren't 100%
Yes.
happy before. And since it's their change, they use that as an opportunity to say, well, I wasn't 100% happy before with the prior owner. I've been thinking about going to another company. I'm just going to make the switch.
Yes. Totally.
So there's a lot to evaluate there, but so those are some of the other markets we've gotten into. We've had a lot of success over the years since we bought them. A lot more and more clients are coming to us, both nationally as well as locally, and we're getting a lot of organic traffic out of those too.
What you learned in your prior, because I always find the most successful out of all the people I've interviewed, they either have a background like they were like engineers or they were in hospitality. Because that's really the industry that you're in, right? You're in hospitality, but also engineers are really able to generally be pretty good at most things. A lot of people think like you want a CEO that's like more like Jack Welch or something, GE, rather than like an engineer type. But I believe they found that the engineering types are generally going to be better, because what you're doing every day is you're trying to optimize things. And so what is your day-to-day these days spent doing? Like, what does an average day look for you? And I'm sure it's probably all over the place, but where are you spending your time these days? I guess I want to ask.
The key word you just said, optimization. So I'm a software engineer, software developer, solutions architect. I'm good in math, science. Like that's where I started out even before I started working. And so what does that mean? Decimal points, numbers, like all these little details matter. And in our industry, the details do matter, right? If you're going to be really good at it. Now, granted, some people will overlook it, but to really stand out and get that 5-star service, like I know just from working with the Four Seasons and the Ritz-Carlton, I just know working with them, for them to get that 5-star, like everything has to be on point. They get mystery shopped, and if anything's out of line, like, hey, you're really, really good. You might even be great. So we're gonna give you a 4-star. The reason you get a 5-star is because you missed this or you missed this. And I know because they talked to us about like, listen, we need you guys to be on point too. We know it's coming sometime in the next 30 days. We don't know by who or when, but even having the Four Seasons magazine, and Turn the Right Way, and making sure there's a bottle of water in there, not just bottled water, but also chilled. Like all those little details matter. And so I try to train my staff, and particularly my leadership team. For example, like, again, I don't get involved every day in checking all the vehicles, but I train the team. So for example, even with the water bottles, it's not enough just to supply a water bottle. Like it should be chilled. Doesn't have to be ice cold because not everyone likes it that way. But at least be chill, right? And then if you're on a multi-hour deal, it's road shows, which they were a lot more common before, maybe just an hourly service because they're doing a tour or something, especially in smaller vehicles, they should be swapped out, right? So if someone drank half a bottle and then they're going into a 1-hour meeting, don't leave that water bottle there. Take that out and put in a fresh one in there. But I'm so anal retentive that I tell my team, don't put it in immediately, because what happens over time, it warms up. So when they tell you, hey, I'm going to be out at 2:00, I'll text you if I'm going to be out earlier. Literally 5 minutes, you should be watching the clock because you're on duty anyways. 5 minutes before, then go swap it out. So it's freshly chilled, right? Like I pay attention.
So that's detail. And just how you illustrated it right there really encapsulates what you mean, right? Because
Right.
you're like, oh, no, not just, oh, restock it. Yeah, oh, I'll just restock it. No. But if you do it too soon, by the time they're back in the car, then it's not as chilled, right? And that's a excruciating level of detail, but that's the kind of stuff that people notice too, especially
Oh
the
yeah.
people who matter. The people who matter really notice that stuff because
Right.
they know it's not easy, especially the bigger you get. And that was another thing I was wondering. How do you kind of like, because at a certain size, it's very hard to control these little things, right?
It is very much so. Yeah, especially when you're using partners and IOs. And so the goal is obviously is to find those that have the same philosophy as you. And they may not align
Yeah.
100%, but then you also have to be careful. You can't tell them exactly everything to do and how to do it because you start running into trouble. So, I know there was a big thing before in the affiliate world where like, oh, you got to wear our tie and you got to hand out our business cards and you got to use our custom branded bottled water and you get mystery shopped and you have to tell them you work for this company or you represent them. And I agree with a lot of that, but I don't agree with all of it. And part of the reason I don't agree with all of it is customers aren't dumb. They know
Yeah.
that you don't have a million cars spread out all over the world. They know that, right? But what they're gonna rely on you is, hey, I know who I'm calling when I want to book something. I know who I'm calling when I have a problem. And I understand that you have a partner network and you're relying on partners to execute like you would in your home market. So they're not dumb. So why try to pretend they're not a partner,
Thank
right?
you.
But
Thank
you
you.
have to, but you just have to respect that relationship, right? And that's the part where you can get yourself in trouble, right? They're like, hey, because there's always some margin in there, right? And even if the customer doesn't know the dollar amount, they know there's some margin. So if that customer comes and says, hey, can I just book with you directly? That's where you got to put your hand down and say, I can't. I respect my relationship with my partner. That's where the work came from. I need to refer you back to them, right?
Yes.
And so that's critically important. And not everyone understands that, whether you're a big company, much bigger than me, with like, oh, you got to hit all these points or you're bad. But as long as you're respecting that relationship and you're constantly referring that, you're trying to make them look good and refer that business back to them and not try to skirt them or steal that business. They know the customers know that they're not dumb. And I think that's where a lot of people get into trouble. And so we will give like our business cards to our partners. We'll give them our custom branded bottled water. Like, hey, come pick it up. Like, use it for our customers. And then when they ask you for, you put your phone number, your name down, hand out our business card. And so we do some things like that to try to preserve our brand in front of them, and hopefully also give kind of a small reminder to the partner. Don't forget where the business is coming from if they do try to book with you directly.
Totally.
And so those are some of the details that are important to us. We used to offer our company branded ties. In fact, we still will. They come and say, hey, I want to wear your company tie when I pick up your clients. Great. Come get it. We'll even give it to you. But we don't require it. We just require a certain industry standard dress and appearance that anyone would expect kind of all over the globe or a particular market. Because you go to a Hawaii or Caribbean island, they're not typically going to be wearing a suit unless they're asked. Or wearing a Hawaiian shirt, something light. Right? You go to the mountains. I know when I first was trying to build business up there, I'd show up in my suit. People are looking at me weird, like, who is this guy? Right? But they, seems like a Wall Street type person versus we're up in the mountains, we're more casual. So we found a kind of a mix to look sharp without wearing a suit and still stand out for the right reasons up in the mountain markets. So it's a challenge definitely as you grow to maintain service standards, maintain the brand loyalty, maintain your customers. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I love what you said though about your customers aren't dumb. And the funny thing is, if you take the general population, many times people that use these services are actually going to be the part of the population that's generally pretty intelligent, business savvy. They get it. You use partners, and it just reminds me of a story where someone was asking me about a bid they were doing, and I came to find out that he did not make it clear that he would be using, partners or whatever. And I just thought, man, that, like you said, customers aren't dumb. And if you're not, I feel like if you're not upfront about these things, it just, then you lose the trust. And like you said, look, as long as they're keeping the standard, they're trusting you and your judgment and discretion. And that's the brand. That's a Hermes brand. It's you and your judgment, and you being very picky with who you work with. That's what matters, right? And that's what makes your brand and gives it the kind of online reputation it has, which
absolutely it does. And like we get a lot of like, you can go out to our Google reviews now, and we've never really focused on getting those. It kind of just came by chance. But since we've been focusing on them, I mean, we've added a lot over the last year and a half, and we get a lot of compliments from our partners too, right? And so, or about our partners, so we can tell just by the name that they put in there, and so that's really good to see that our clients are pleased with our partner network, and it's also really good to see that that they recognize the importance of that, and that our partners are matching our service standards and what we've asked them to do. Because ultimately it's just going to make them more successful, not just with us, but also with other companies that will farm work out to them, or even their own direct clients. Like we have a good enough standard. Like if you follow this, not only will our clients be happy, but everyone you drive will be happy. And so we're doing it not so much to control people as much as I've always taken the adage of I'm trying to raise the game. And particularly in our market. And it's funny because there's someone local, I won't get into who, but if he watches this, he knows who he is. There's been two different people said, oh, he's ruining the industry. I'm like, how am I ruining it? Because I've increased the service standards. Like if that's ruining it, maybe for you because you were more lax, but it's causing us to be more successful. So, and then I hear other things too, where people, because we grew so quick, people like, oh, so-and-so saying this about you, so-and-so saying about this about you. I'm like, I don't even know who they are, or even if I do, I don't care. They can worry about me and keep eyes on me. I'm keeping my eyes down, grinding and trying to improve every day and trying to meet my customers' need. That's all I care about. And if that upsets you in some way, so be it. Maybe you should be in a different industry, but I'm more focused on me and my team and what we're doing to make our clients happy. I don't have time for all the other noise, and I can care less.
Yeah.
So it's just really focused. Sorry to interrupt you there, Mark, but
no. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yes. Yeah. No.
And you were asking like, what do I do? Like I told you about optimization, right? So I told you, gave the water bottle example, right? The other thing is I'm always looking at, hey, now I'm now working on the business versus in the business, right? So if I get some analytics, I'm like, hey, our response time on our emails is 2 hours and 15 minutes. Well, what can we do to get that under 2 hours, right? And then once we get that, we're working up to an hour and a half. Now I'm to the point where I'm like, what can we do to get our responses out in under 30 minutes?
Yeah.
That's the goal, right? And then the phones, like almost no hold time. Making sure we're communicating. So if we do have to put a customer on hold, we're checking back in with them, even if we're trying to figure out what's going on with their chauffeur. We don't keep them on hold for 5 or 10 minutes. We might ultimately over time, but you need to be checking back in with them. Nothing is more frustrating at the customer. You're looking for your vehicle and you're sitting on hold for 5 minutes. Like, what is going on? So I tell my team, you should come off of hold, even if you're don't have a solution. Let them know, hey, I haven't forgot about you. I'm still working on your issue. Here's where we're at right now. I need to place you on hold again. I'll be right back, right? You have to do that constant check-in so you're not just leaving them hanging, wondering what's going on. And so that's where I really spend my time working with my team as to what can we do to improve, which kind of leads to, AI and some other things I'm not ready to announce yet that we're working on to try to help us make us be more responsive, not just to our external customer, but also internally. Like, what can we do to make us more efficient and quicker, which ultimately is going to make us more efficient and quicker to respond to our customers too.
Yeah, I love that. So what I heard that kind of was not said, but is what you must be doing is you're keeping track of things like response times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you probably have lots of different metrics in all, different spots in your business, the marketing side, the sales side, even the, service delivery side of things, of numbers that, like, I guess you could call it a KPI. Like, what is our average response time on here, and is that improving? And
Right.
that's how you keep the finger on the pulse.
Oh yeah, even like with chats, right? Like website chats. Like, my team, when we first implemented it, they were too slow to respond, not for our overarching goal, but more so for web chats, right? And so the analogy I used with them, like, listen, you can't treat web chat like an email and say, well, I'll get to it in the next 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes. And you also can't treat it like a phone call where some people, we can play some hold music. Some people maybe expect when they call into a call center, there might be some hold time. I said, you got to treat web chat as if someone's walking into your resale store and standing directly across from your desk and staring at you.
I like that.
So when you say, well, I responded within 1 minute, yeah, but there was 1 minute of dead air, someone standing across from you at the table just staring at you and you staring at them. Think about how uncomfortable that is. So we looked at it and I said, we have to respond within seconds. Like 30 seconds is even too long. Like, we have to respond. So then I worked with my team, like, okay, I get it. Like, you may not be able to jump on it right away. You may have 2 or 3 things in the fire that you're working on. But we still have that doesn't excuse it. We still have to respond. So then I worked with my team, like, okay, well, what can we do to,
it's like the call, jump in, and like, I love that. I love that idea.
So I'm like, what can we do to give their customers a perception that will work on their issue? I'm like, well, we're always going to have some questions, right? So let's just configure the chat bot to ask some upfront questions. Okay, can I get your name? And when they respond, okay, great. Do you have an existing account attorneys? And so what does that do? It buys you some time, even if it may only buy you 30 seconds, right? And what are you inquiring about? Now it buys you time. A web chat just came in. You're trying to wrap something up. And then by them answering those questions, you can have a more intelligent conversation, right? So now you see the web chat come up. It's like, okay, I know the person requesting his name is Mark. He doesn't have an existing account with us. He's looking for a ride to the LAX airport. He needs a ride tomorrow. So now when I start chatting with them, I don't say, can I get your name? After they've already been waiting, right? What are you inquiring about? Where are you going? Like, you already have at least some of the information for now you can have intelligent conversation. Say, oh, hey, Mark, thanks for checking in. I see that you need a ride to the LA export tomorrow and you're potentially a new account. I have an account. Great. I'd love to help you. I need a couple more details from you, right? And so we've kind of built some systems to allow us to buy us some time to be able to respond. And then it immediately engages the customer. So like, oh, wow, they're responding quickly. But again, it's a perception. Even if there's not a live person doing it, we're still automatically collecting data we're eventually going to have to ask for anyways. And then it's all in our system to where it doesn't repeat itself and we have it all right in front of us. So it's just all those things that I look at and also look kind of for failure points. Because when my time in IT, I was trained in Six Sigma. Do you know what Six Sigma is?
I've heard that term before. It's something that they teach you when you're getting an MBA, right? I believe.
It is. Well, they do touch on it, but it was with my time in Vail that they were implementing that.
Okay.
And it really comes from Toyota in manufacturing.
Oh,
and so,
okay.
This is how Toyota, at least at the time when they were, I think it was 70s and 80s, when in the US we felt like they're building an inferior product. This is how they became superior.
You're eating our lunch.
Yeah. And so Six Sigma. And so what the idea behind it is, you are looking for your failure points, right? And then what you're doing is you're constantly tweaking that to get to what they call 5 nines, to where you literally have 9, or I think it's 4 nines or 5 nines, to where your failures are so small that your reliability goes through the roof. And so what I'm kind of analyzing, looking for optimizing a business, what are our failure points, right? Hold times, response times, accurate information. Like, what can I do to give my team the ability to best respond with accurate, timely, and reliable information so they can pass that on to our customers. And so that's why I spend a lot of my time saying, okay, where's our failure point, right? Even something simple as, oh, a car went out dirty. Okay, where's the failure? Why did it fall out dirty? Was it miscommunication? Well, if it's miscommunication, what systems, not complicated, but what systems can we put in place to identify this car's been brought back? It needs to be detailed. Detailer's aware of it. Detailer knows when it needs to go out by. Detailer cleans the vehicle. And now when the chauffeur gets in, you don't have to worry about cleaning the vehicle, both inside and out. And so it's all those things I look at. And so what Six Sigma is, it was really initially designed for manufacturing and how can we identify the failure points and then address those failure points and fine tune them to where they're no longer a failure, or you have systems in place to catch it before it becomes a problem. And so I use that. I've always had that analysis and thought process as we're building things, from an application for employment to a customer inquiry, regardless of what channel it comes in, to our response times, to the amenities and functionality of the vehicles, like all of that. I like, it's inbred in me. That's how my thoughts always work in terms of how can I help to improve and optimize the business.
See, engineering you, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and I love that. I love that framework. It's like almost like, what's the constraint in a way, or what are the few different things that
Right.
could be optimized? And so that's beautiful. Future of Hermes, are you looking to retire in a year or two, or are you planning on owning this thing for a while and growing it further? Or do you have, like a 5-10 year vision? I mean, you're still a relatively young guy, or you either that or you age gracefully.
Certainly no immediate plans to sell, right? As I say, hey, everything's for sale for the right price, right?
Sure, of course.
But,
Yeah.
but I'm certainly not actively marketing our company. Like I'm a very competitive person by nature, and I think that developed from my time playing sports since I was a very little kid. Like I love that. And the one thing analogy I always use by T gets kind of laughs at me now is, and because it translates so well to business, is I hate losing more than I enjoy winning. So if I win a new account, like I'm excited for about 5 seconds. But if I lost an opportunity, which I've had many losses, like it's, and I love baseball. I told you earlier, like we had opportunity to go to some World Series games, and that was
that's
amazing.
pretty sweet, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So I've loved baseball since I was 4 years old and still do today at 52, and I love everything about it. But baseball is the most humbling sport because it's the only sport where you can fail 70% of the time and still be looked at as a Hall of Famer, right? That's very humbling to be able to fail that much. And in business, I think that's on par. I have more new opportunities tell me no than tell me yes, but it doesn't stop me. I'm always using those losses as to how can I improve my marketing material, my communication style, what my pitch is, our service offering. Like I take every loss and like just analyze it and like, what could I have done differently? And that approach has helped because it has helped me to improve our company pitch and our brand and how we present it to the market and what we focus on. And so that's I still get energized about that. It gets my adrenaline flowing.
I can tell. Yeah, I can tell. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I still plan to grow the company. I don't have any growth plans. Of course, an NBA coach or a business coach probably hate me saying this, but like I don't have it in my head like, hey, I want to be double in 5 years. Like I want to grow, but not grow too quick, because we've had those years where we grew. Our best growth year was 182% year over year. And while that was good for gross revenue, my team felt it and they flat out said, you do that again and we're quitting. They're like, okay, fair.
Yeah, that's insane.
Not that they don't want to grow, but just at that pace, you have too many failure points, right? And you're gonna lose some of those clients that you work so hard to get. So now more reasonable growth. And they say that, if you grow 20% year over year, you will double in size in 5 years. And we've had some of those experiences, 20% or more. And so I just continually want to grow our business. I want us to get better at what we're doing. But for me, I take the company I built very seriously. Yeah, I do feel successful. But what I don't lose track of is every single day through my conversations with my team, even if they don't say anything, is I'm now responsible for, I think we're around 90 employees. I'm responsible for their livelihood. The decisions that I make can directly affect how much vacation they can take, whether they earn enough to not just get by, but survive and invest in whatever it is they want to invest in, whether it's vacation time, whether it's, their health, whether it's, retirement plans, a new car. Maybe, I had someone tell me one of the things they were grateful for recently, because we're doing it internally for the month of Thanksgiving for November, is they say I was able to buy my first house. Like,
Oh,
to
that
me,
feels good, right? Does
yeah,
that
like
not
I'm
feel
like,
good?
oh yeah, like I
Yeah,
had
yeah,
some small part in them providing them a reliable business, reliable income, and reliable customers that keep coming back to enable them to be able to do that. Like, to me, it's like that's the wins that are important to me now. And don't get me wrong, like, if we land a new account, I'm very happy about that. But knowing that how that new account and that revenue is going to impact my team is where I really get juiced up about. And I'm like, that's so cool to hear stories like that. And then when I see people come to work in new cars, like, I'm your biggest champion. Like, I don't, that's great that you can do that. Like, I see people that'll be just like, you know, going from a 1992 Honda Accord to, a 2010 Honda Accord. I'm seeing people drive in with really brand new cars that are, I don't know, I guess are probably $50,000 to $70,000. And I'm like, good for you, man. If you can do that, that is awesome. And if I helped in some way, it's kind of reciprocal. I have to pull the right levers and make the right decisions, but at the
yeah,
same time, all the team has to provide the service too, right? But just to know I helped them in some capacity, to me, is very gratifying. So now I get happier about that and expanding our benefit package, giving them nice equipment to drive, just anything I can do to make their day easier. We used to have chauffeurs have to wash their own vehicles many years ago, but now we got a detail team that does that. And now we got in-house mechanics that they can be very responsive if they got a flat tire. So now instead of making a chauffeur, in their suit, change a flat tire, depending where they're at, we're often able to send a mechanic out there and get it done for them. Like, just all those little things that are important to me. Whether it's important to them, I don't know. But we got a lot of longevity. A lot of people have been with us for many years. So it tells me we're doing some things right. And that's what I really get excited about. So I want to keep growing. I want us to be the best at what we do. I want to be not only a supplier of choice, but an employer of choice. And I feel we've made a lot of progress there, but we still got a lot more work to do.
dude, I love it. I can tell you're passionate about it. You're doing it for all the right reasons, and it sounds like you enjoy what you do, right?
Very much so.
And you're very good at it. So, Jorge, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, and I will. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, Mark. I hope you and your audience will enjoy some of the things I had, and if they can pick up some nuggets that are helpful to them, all the better.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Sounds good.